amazing series of women you should know in the Coachella Valley. I love these two ladies, and I'm so excited to introduce them to you. The superstars of Blalock Dye. I have Alanna Blalock and Danielle Dye. Their law firm has been super successful over the past 2 years since they started it. They do specialize in employment law and dabble in criminal. And I can't wait for you to learn a little bit more about them. So ladies, tell me a little bit about your business over the past couple of years. And don't fight over who talks, okay?
Well, typically I'm the talker of the group, so I'll just get started and let Alanna chime in when she wants. So Alanna and I, both, this is a second career for both of us. I'll let you tell you about yourself tomorrow. I'll be nice to you. Essentially, I was in the hospitality industry for almost 20 years, traveled around the United States and worked at different places, but a lot of different businesses here in the Coachella Valley. I'd say 2013, I decided, I can't do this any longer, so I need to figure out what I was going to do for my future. So I went back to school and I started law school, and that's actually where Alanna and I met. That was 4 grueling years, but we got through it, and that's pretty much my journey through law school. I worked 2 jobs throughout and finished past bar at some point in there, and then one day Alanna she texted me, and I hadn't spoken with her for quite some time, and just a little secret, we weren't BS in law school. We were able to focus on the prize and doing our own thing, and so we didn't have a lot of communication throughout law school. But one day, COVID was hitting. I had no job. I was just kind of waiting around a little bit, and Alanna texted me and said there's an opening in a position at the law firm she was working at. And so I thought about it, and I was like, that's weird. Why is she texting me? But she'll tell you why if she wants to. Anyway, so we started working. I believe I started September 2020 there. Yep. So the thick of COVID, and off to the races. And I worked there for about 2 years, less than 2 years, I should say. And then Alanna and I, in December of 2021, decided we were gonna, we're spring chickens, and we needed to get it going. And so we decided to go off on our own. So we started day one in our pajamas at Alanna's kitchen table. We have a photo of that. Mm-hmm. And we created a list of, 37 or 38 things, several lists, but one particular I still have, and almost everything is crossed off of it, except one thing. So we're working on it this year, one thing. And I have the list, and I carry it around with me, but once it's done, it'll probably be framed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, Alanna, you have also had second career as well for you.
Second career.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your journey up until the point when and why you decided to call Danielle or text Danielle to start to bring her over to where you were working.
So second career for me, I was in law enforcement and EMS. I worked on a 911 ambulance for over a decade.
Wow.
Like Danielle, you cannot continue on like that. Sure. She just is, you sit all the time, she stands all the time. And so happenstance happened, and I met Mr. Dolan, the dean of the law school, and I was going to go to nursing school, but because I was a lot older, I had to retake a lot of classes that I was not going to do. And it was Danielle's class, and this was like on a weekend at his kitchen table with he and his wife. And he's like, well, law school starts on Tuesday, so why don't you just come? And if you like it, then you'll just go to law school and become an attorney. And I'm like, okay. So I went on Tuesday, and I loved it. It was contracts. I had no idea what was happening. And then criminal law was Wednesdays, and torts was on Thursdays. And yeah, it was. Danielle and I can both agree that if we could do law school all over again, we would.
Which is so crazy because, we've talked about it so often, and it's no joke. It's a commitment. Mm-hmm. It's a time commitment. It's a mind commitment. It's not for the faint of heart.
Mm-hmm. There's just no anything other than law school for 4 years. And that 2 to 3 month period when you're studying for the bar, I miss family weddings, my own birthday, but you just do nothing but, I've been in for 20 years, and I was absent for about 4 years, and then, that period, I still get shit from my family about not going to family things, and I'm like, no one will ever understand unless you're in law school, because let's talk about it. So, there is when you go to school for some things, you're going to be tested when your license is in one subject, and in law, there's 14 subjects of law that you're tested on, and then within those 14 subjects, 4 of them have 2 subparts, federal and state. So we're talking, you have to have an understanding and be able to test on that. at the tip of your fingers because you have, very little time for these essays or questions, and it's not something that you can just get through or I'll maybe pass. It's real expensive.
And you both went to school here locally. Mm-hmm. I don't know that people are aware there's a fantastic law school here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you guys were able to drive there every day and not have to travel and not have to live somewhere else. So that's a huge deal. And so tell everybody where that law school is.
So it's located in Indio, downtown Indio, and it's off of Jackson and right by the courthouse, probably about 2 blocks away from it, blocking distance, if you had to. But I actually worked there starting my first year in law school. So when you become a first-year law student, you take the first-year law student examination, which is like a miniature bar, and which we thought was so difficult. Now going back, I was like, oh, I do a bunch of those.
Oh, man. But it still is an 8-hour exam.
Yes.
It's an 8-hour exam, but on 3 subjects because it's just so vast and so much, but it's killer.
Yes, for a first-year law student. Then you can become a certified law clerk. So you get to be working and going to court with attorneys and standing up and appearing, which I probably have some really bad experiences from because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I became Mr. Dolan's certified law clerk for his homicide unit at his practice through law school for my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year.
Can I just chime in? And Mr. Dolan's kind of a big deal. So
I was just going to say,
getting that position.
You're saying Mr. Dolan, so tell me who Mr. Dolan is.
Mr. Dolan is the dean of the law school. Him and his wife, Irene Garcia Dolan, started the law school. He's a criminal defense attorney. He does death penalty cases, capital cases, multiple murders, homicide. He is a badass. He's been, practicing law for over 40 years, and he decided he wanted to teach a trial advocacy type law school. A lot of law schools are you're in the classroom and you're doing those things on paper and on books, but you're not preparing for your day in court. You're not preparing for the bar. So the law school, California Desert Trial Academy, each classroom is set up like a different type of courtroom. So there's an appellate courtroom, a federal courtroom, and then a superior courtroom. So you know that when you go in there and your professor, all of our professors are either judges or attorneys. There's no just professors. Nothing against that, but for this type of law school, that's what they wanted. And so essentially, if they called in you to answer, you need to stand up as if you're addressing the court. There's none of this hiding under your book or I don't know. It's no, get up and say it.
Which has got to be, that real life experience has got to have prepared you so differently for what you do now.
Yes.
And it was also really scary.
It was really scary.
It was, especially when you have judges that one day you're going to appear before, which we have now,
right?
And we're just like, okay, we're just first-year law student. Here we are. We know nothing, and it's just, all right, well, we're going to stand up and brief our cases, and then
just jump in.
Judge Evans swore me in Palm Springs, but I remember him, Miss at the time was Moyers, Miss Moyers, stand up and answer this question. I don't that's scary. It's a judge, and you don't know. I've never been in a courtroom. I've never been in that capacity, so I was just, afraid. And then, turns out, 4 years down the road, 4 years and some change, I called him, and he's like, "Come on down." The very next day, because I wanted to once I got the letter, I was like, "Let's go."
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, real quick rewind. So now here we are. We have our we're practicing. We work for somebody else. You said, Danielle, there's an opening position. I'd like for you to come, right, over to give or take generally, right? But you reached out to her, and something you knew about her, even though you didn't know a lot, caused you to reach out. What was that?
I would say in the 4 years Danielle and I went to law school together, we probably had, I can count them on my hands how many times we had real conversations. And that's 4 years. And that's all we did was go to law school and study and go to law school and study. And so when I worked for my previous employer, she was like, "Do you know anyone that works as hard as you do?" And I'm like, "I do." And she's like, "Well, great. Ask them if they can come down and apply." I'm like, "Okay." So I literally texted her from my office, and she was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm going on some trips, but okay, I'll come down."
Hashtag Big Bear August 20. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Red Blitz. You're going to
that's
the
right.
Red Blitz. And I said, well, if I could interview and all those things and start after, thinking they would say no, because that's 5 weeks away. They said yeah.
They They said yes, and I remember that. I remember when she was getting ready for that and all the things. We were super excited.
Yeah.
And you worked in this was a successful law practice that you worked for.
Yeah.
You had a lot of business, a lot of exposure, and then you both said, "We want to do this on our own."
Yeah.
Like, so tell us about that conversation because that's a big deal. Like, I don't know. I watch Suits. And I mean, I don't think it's just like that easy. So, like, how did you come to the decision? And obviously, you chose each other. And so, talk to us about that.
So Danielle and I primarily worked together at the firm. We were working mostly in defense work for employers, and we didn't really touch on plaintiff work because defense work is billable, and you can get a lot of work done. And we were good with talking with the clients and helping them, and so that was our primary focus. And after a couple of dinner conversations out, our plan went from like 24 months, 12 months, 8 months, to 6 months, to
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Blast.
I remember it was at LG's. And it was in November, and I remember specifically, and we were, toying with the idea, and then it was going to be June, and then it was just rip the Band-Aid off, and that is pretty much how I gave our notice for Alanna and myself together.
So
I just said, I got to rip the Band-Aid, and Alanna and I, and the attorney we worked for, we love her, respect her. She taught us so much. We couldn't be here without her guidance. I mean, ultimately, yes, our biggest, we wanted to venture out and try other types of law. That was an employment law firm that did plaintiffs and defense work. But Alanna had, clerked for Mr. Dolan and had experience in that and really liked criminal aspect. And I previously was paralegal for estate planning. And then working there for 2 years, we really weren't sure, but we were knowledgeable in that field. And so we know that that could sustain us while we try and dabble in other things.
because you wanted, although employment law was feeding you, you wanted to try other things. You had skills and you wanted to test yourself in other things, right? So essentially what you decided to do was leave the comfort of what you had and really at some point, like, it's kind of like a risk because there are many successful lawyers in this town. It was a risk, right? And you said you kind of just ripped the Band-Aid off, right? And for these conversations we've been having with other women, they all have this moment where it's like, I'm going to do this. I don't know what happens on the other end, and that's okay. And I'm going to do this. And that's what you guys did. Now, people don't know, but I do, and I'm telling you, these two ladies are incredibly successful at what they do. They have curated a business that competes with everyone else. If I'm not right, ladies, tell me. But go ahead. You took the leap and you fucking killed it.
I mean, we have been so fortunate. I think that both of us being here in the Valley for so long in different capacities. Alanna, of course, knows a lot of individuals. Me working in hospitality, I have a different grouping of individuals. And so we pulled from that. A lot of concerns when we went off is how are you going to get business? And still people ask us, how do you get business? And we have really great referrals. Shout out to Diane Blaisdell. She gives us a lot of referrals, and she is the reason she does that is because she's confident because we will do the job. Because you don't technically really want to put your reputation on the line for somebody, and they, shit the bed with it. But you need to be able to say. And so Diane was our professor in law school, one of our professors in law school, and she knew our work ethic and knew what we, not bragging, but she just saw us, going through law school. And she feeds us a lot. I don't say feeds us, but she gives us a lot of referrals. And we have a lot of people. We have a website, but we don't really advertise. Facebook. Alanna is great on the Facebook, and we put some posts on there.
She has Pinterest, so.
Yeah, look me up. I have 2 followers. I'm looking for some more people. See what's up with my mom and cousin, or my niece who's on there. Just kidding. We're very fortunate because of the ties we have, and it's just incredible because there are 7 days a week sometimes, and we're just jamming.
So connections are important. Who you know is important. But like you said earlier, she asked you, who do you know that works as hard as you do?
Oh yeah.
And you guys work your ass off for this. So although you took the risk, you left and did the whole thing, like, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. You cannot just expect things to happen, and you guys are a perfect example of that. Yeah. A perfect example. I mean, it's been really fun. 2 years?
2 years. January. It was December something, but we started on January 1st. We kind of called that the start date so I can just always remember that. So I hear when it's on the first of the year. 2021. Excuse me.
So, each of you tell us like what was like a real struggle for you, whether it was during school or making the decision, and then what was actually easier than you anticipated.
I think that the biggest struggle at the beginning was not knowing. Like, we literally sat at a 2-person bar top in the middle of a rental property because my house was flooded in our pajamas, and we were just like, how are we going to do this? And we had reached out to the conflict panel to become one of the attorneys to be assigned indigent cases. And we had never gone to court by ourselves. I mean, I had gone with Mr. Dolan, but those were only trials. Like, I didn't go on a day-to-day basis. We were literally shiny new pennies.
Oh my goodness.
Walking into court. And we kept saying to ourselves, okay, if we look like we know what we're doing, then nobody's going to notice us. Well, the problem is that Danielle and I are pretty tall in heels, and we're in suits, and we look brand new. Like, everything's brand new.
You can just tell when someone's new. And Alanna was standing, and she had one case on, and I just went with her. It's in white. I'm going to drive down there and remember who the client was, and the judge, who, it's a small town, we go every Tuesday now.
Yes.
And, he was like, well, who are these two? Because there's the same people there all the time. So a lot of standing there, and kind of like the movie Step Brothers, and he's like, who is this? And I'm just, oh, Your Honor. I just got sworn into the bar. It was very much just telling the judge that he knew what he was dealing with, so he doesn't anticipate I'm gonna, ask for some sort of something, so I was new, so it was very easy, okay, but he was very kind and really helped. Being in that courthouse really helped facilitate a lot of our skills and gain some confidence and know exactly what you're due to do. And so we've just been very fortunate to have very kind judges. I have been in front of other judges where you're like, holy shit, like, I don't want to come back here, but for the most part, especially here in the desert life, went to San Bernardino not too long ago, or Banning, and you're like, huh, totally different. So we're very fortunate because I think we know people around here, and they are familiar with us going to CDTA, which is going to be in its 13th academic year, starting in September. So that's huge. Alana's daughter's going there, starting in September.
Generational stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
That's awesome.
First, it will be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So advice for somebody. I mean, what would you tell somebody who was thinking about law school, or just in something different and new and scary?
Oh, you should definitely go to law school.
Danielle actually thinks everyone should go to law school.
Totally agree.
Here's a couple things. When you're done, you have a doctorate. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer, but you have a doctorate. And with having a doctorate, you can do a lot of things. We both teach at the law school, so we become professors, so it's very full circle. It was actually, we did this event where Alanna and I had to do a presentation, and so there's all these, it's an MCLE event, continuing education, and there's all these judges and professors and attorneys and some students there too, and it was a very interesting position to be in, because we are now up front, communicating and educating these people about a type of law, and it used to be the other way around.
Yeah.
And we actually have a professor who was opposing counsel on the case that we have, and so it's really full circle. But yes, everyone should go to law school if you want to. It's commitment. It's not like you can just get by like you're doing, COD general ed classes, but it's so awesome. I would totally do it all over again. CDTA is an amazing school to go to. Support and just accessible, and it just forces you to be in the legal community. So when you're done, you just know these people.
Yeah,
and
that's that hands-on stuff.
Right.
That's what when you say that, I think hands-on,
Absolutely.
like really exposing you to different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome, ladies. This has been very fun. Is there anything you want to say? Any advice?
Yeah, well, I was wondering why they should go to law school. Because not that we have different perspectives, but I communicate differently, so people may want to hear it from you.
I think it just gives.
Sorry to take over the interview.
Right?
No, but
it's okay, because I'm always the one that something happens to. I fall out of chairs. I get called crybaby. And then
That's in court, by the way. That's in
somebody
court.
called you crybaby in court?
The DA.
on the record.
You were crying. No, I'm just kidding. She was not. No, she was advocating strongly for her client, and the DA did not like her perspective and called her a crybaby. Miss Blalock, crybaby over here in open court while she's arguing a motion, which is what you're supposed to do. if you can't tell, Alana's not going to be like me. Maybe people would call me a crybaby. I'm animated. I speak a lot of that. Alana's very measured, and she was not. It was ridiculous, but.
No, I did fall out of the chair in court.
That did
Broken
happen.
chair. It always seems to happen to me. But going back to the law school, it's just like learning a trade that everybody should know because you're more aware. That's the best way to put it. And going and circling back to Judge Evans, I remember one of our first or second law classes that he taught, civil law. He said, when you graduate law school, you're going to look at the entire world differently, and what can happen if somebody doesn't do something lawfully or if somebody doesn't think illegally. What are the consequences? Like, you're always thinking, and it's just a different mindset. It's the only way I can describe it. And
and everything's predicated on the Constitution, everyone's rights. So having an understanding of what your rights are, what other people's rights are. I remember somebody in criminal law, maybe it was John, I can't remember if it was Mr. Dolan or Dean Steady, but said, criminal people have the same rights as you. They have the same rights as people who are not. And, that's something that when I think an individual is looking at someone in the justice system, they're looking at them in a different perspective, but they have the same rights until they're convicted or imprisonated or whatever, They have the same rights, and that's interesting because I think people don't think that.
Right.
I think people are like, oh, well, you're a criminal, so I have more, or you have less, or something along those lines, and it's not. And it's equal playing field, and not everyone likes that statement, but that's the truth. I think we all have the same rights, and being educated about your rights and knowing, what's what is really powerful.
Awesome. That's very cool, ladies. So if anybody needed to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Well,
you don't have to put your phone number.
I was going to say, my website is www.mydesertlaw.com. Our email, Danielle, DANIELLE @mydesertlaw.com, and Alanna, ALANNA. Everyone misses the second A. Alanna @mydesertlaw.com.
Yeah, so awesome.
Or Kelly, she can put you in touch.
Yeah, I can do that. I've got connections. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been amazing. I really appreciate it. Now you have to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can watch it.
That means I have to get YouTube.
You have to get YouTube. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay tuned for the next part of the series.